Okay, so here we have 2 rows of celery that we've planted, and they are in a desperate need of weeding. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time, just like I did with the Brussels sprouts. I'm going to identify my area. You just figure out an area you want to work, and then you're going to work hard to eliminate all of the weeds in that area. The celery that I'm growing is this. It's coming right up out of the ground here. And so I have 2 rows of celery. They go right in front of me, 1 and 2. But between them, I don't have a lot of grass here, but I have some other weeds that are creeping right along the ground. So the first thing I'm going to do is just going to start to take out the weeds. So I have a big old piece of crabgrass growing here. You want to just pull it out gently to make sure that you're taking all of the root system with it. It doesn't make any sense just to pick off the foliage off the top and leave an established root system behind, because the plant will just come up again. If you take the roots, you really set that plant back so that it can't grow. There might be a little trace of a root system in there, but the likelihood that it might not survive is bigger. We like that. I'm going to take our roots away. Now I notice right here, you can see I have a grub of some kind. This is not like a Japanese beetle grub. It doesn't seem to be. Same sort of color. I'm not sure what that guy is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put him right into my bucket. I've taken out most of the water on the bottom, so I don't want to kill him, just in case it turns out to be some sort of insect that I want to keep, a beetle that is beneficial. And as I move at the end of this lesson back inside to do my editing and all that jazz, I can do a quick search and figure out what species that guy is, and if it is a beneficial insect. Remember, we want to increase the amount of beneficial insects that we have in our gardens. I will just bring them right on back and tuck them back into the soil. Just going to go carefully in my grid. You can see that right over here we have our Brussels sprout, and then we roll from the Brussels sprouts right on into my celery area of the garden. Celery and Brussels sprouts don't share insect pests like the other plants that we have on that side generally do. The brassicas, that means kale and cabbage, kohlrabi, broccoli, cauliflower, these guys are all from the same family. If you remember from our lessons during quarter 4, these guys, because they're like cousins, they share a lot of the same insect problems. And so the imported cabbage worm really likes to eat those guys. As soon as it figures out where they are, they're going to have a field day. One of the things I tried to do to mitigate it, because I didn't put down floating row covers, one of the things I tried to do to mitigate it is right in the center, I planted a little bit of garlic. Garlic is a nice plant that generally keeps away sometimes some of these pests. And then I also decided early on that I was gonna focus on bringing the Brussels sprouts and the kale into harvest, and that if I had to sacrifice one crop, it would be the cauliflower. Cauliflower takes just a long time to grow, and it's a little fiddly, but also it's delicious to these imported cabbage worms. And so if I only had, say, an hour during the day that I could be out here working this garden space and weeding it and that sort of thing. Well, I would spend a chunk of that time focusing on the plants that I really, really wanted to make sure I brought into harvest, like kale, because my kids love kale chips. And if I had to sacrifice a plant because I didn't have the time to get out here every single day, well, maybe then I would let the imported cabbage worms go a little bit on the cauliflower. And so as you can see from yesterday's video, they kind of chewed it up pretty good, but they have left the kale alone to a large degree, because I've been picking them off that kale as soon as they've been walking on over. I could have spent the time really, really working on picking them off of every single plant that was growing over there. However, I did not have that kind of time. A lot of this is kind of trade-offs. So you can see now I've kind of weeded in my row as we're looking in between these celery plants. I just want to make sure that I've got all the grass up as far as I can reach. I'm working it from one side. I can get on the other side and work it that far side. You know that my garden, on the other side of my garden, is my kids' playground. And so I can stand on in there and weed in there too. So that is it for my celery. I've weeded it through. I've picked out all of the plants that I thought that needed to come on out in this area. It's just celery in the, as far as I can reach into these two rows. So I've gone from my Brussels sprouts over here and cleared straight on over into the other side of my garden. And that's where we'll stop for this little video. We've weeded our celery.